blockchain is really important to differentiate from cryptocurrency. So blockchain, as we all know, is the underlying technology that cryptocurrencies run on. And the technology is very interesting from my perspective because I look at it as a new kind of database technology. So if you're thinking about founding a business as an entrepreneur, there's a new database technology out there. It's called blockchain. It's open source. So if you're going to build software, you can build software on blockchain, build your own blockchain and your own database architecture without relying on any of the big technology companies. Think about how it's going to impact every industry. The same way internet impacted every industry over the last 20 years, and now we just run our lives online essentially, totally transformed our whole society. And the same thing is going to happen with blockchain. It's the next wave of technological disruption and evolution.
Welcome to Rethinking the Dollar. Today I'm excited to have my guest, Mr. Anthony Lacavera, founder and chairman of Globalive, a venture investment firm with offices located in Toronto, New York, as well as San Francisco. Today, Anthony is joining us to share his thoughts on the global economy, as well as the importance of entrepreneurship, as well as his insights and criteria into looking at proper and profitable investment startups. So, Anthony, welcome to Rethinking the Dollar.
Thanks for having me on, Mike.
I definitely look forward to finding out more of your thoughts on entrepreneurship because you are somewhat of a serial entrepreneurial, and so you have a lot of activity going on there. So with Rethinking the Dollar, one of the approaches I like to encourage is to be able to think beyond outside the box, as well as getting people to just really begin to utilize their creativity and ways of making money with doing so. And so before I actually dive into our Rethinking the Dollar questions, can you share with the audience a little bit about your background and how you became a serial entrepreneur and things of that nature?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur my whole career, so it's been about 20 years now of starting and building and operating businesses as a founder and CEO. Over the last 20 years, I've started up 12, which sounds like a lot, but they've all been in the software and telecommunications industry. So I've been pretty focused on a couple of industries and obviously built up over time a lot of expertise in those two industries. And I've had 5 exits, 4 businesses I still own, and 3 that did not work out as well. And so some of the best learnings were for those 3 that didn't work out at all, and I discontinued. Yeah. So definitely, I've been around the block quite a bit in terms of starting up and building businesses, and happy to share my experiences. But have been an entrepreneur, founder, CEO my whole career.
All right, sounds good. Thanks for sharing that. Now, let's dive into a little bit of the Rethinking the Dollar question here. And so the whole idea of Rethinking the Dollar is to get the viewers, as well as a lot of people who are not, who's not too in tune with financial as well as just monetary practices in general. And so just the first question, what comes to mind when Anthony hears the words Rethinking the Dollar?
Look, I think people need to really be looking long-term with their resources. Unfortunately, because of credit, consumer credit and consumer debt, credit card debt, our whole culture, our whole society across this country, but around the world in Western and developed countries has become credit and debt focused, which means you're monthly focused. You're worried about the near term, the immediate term. What are the bills? What are the resources you need to feed your family this month? And that kind of short-term thinking, as you know really well, Mike, doesn't lend itself to creating wealth. It doesn't lend itself to creating long-term value for yourself and your loved ones. So I think we're rethinking the dollar. My immediate reaction is, let's think about the long-term and what we need to do to create value and prosperity for ourselves and our loved ones. Think long-term.
All right, fair enough. Sounds good there. Now, a whole idea of Rethinking the Dollar is also to really promote and encourage financial and what I call financial and monetary literacy. And so, in your opinion, would you say that this point in time in history is probably one of the most important times for people to begin becoming proactive in their education in regards to finances, as well as investing and entrepreneurship and things of that nature?
You've got to take control of your own destiny. And that's the way our society is built. That's what capitalism is. That's the framework, if you will, that each of us is living our life here across the United States or around the world. So I think very much important that you take charge, you take responsibility for your own financial picture, your own financial situation, and literacy is the starting point to being able to be successful in that regard. So, I mean, there's just obviously a ton of information out there that folks can use to get themselves up to speed. But talking to folks like you, Mike, that are sort of credible sources of information, I think is the key thing, because there's so much misinformation and so much partial pieces of information out there that you can end up putting together the wrong picture for yourself if you just start reading stuff, randomly online. You can't do a random approach to this. This has got to be a structured approach that's informed by experts. So I think what you're doing in that regard is a very big ad for people.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, let's get a little bit of your insight on the economy. So you're headquartered out of Toronto, Canada. So there's a lot of things happening in Canada with our relations with the United States of America. And also, I forgot to mention, but you're an author as well. So you wrote a great book that came out in regards to how Canada needs to get back on its horses and work on prosperity and things of that nature. So we're going to touch into that. But give me your assessment of our overall economy right now, the global economy. Where are we at right now? Are there some things that have you concerned or excited? Or give me your thoughts on the global economy right now.
Well, as you know really well, we've been in one of the longest record long bull market. And so there's this growing belief that we will have a reversion to the mean. We will have some form of correction in equity markets. I don't see that as short-term as many of the bears in the market see. A lot of bears are saying we're really on the cusp of a significant correction, whether that is this quarter, next quarter, but it's near term. I don't really see that because, as you know really well, I mean, the U.S. economy, which is leading the world economy and still the largest economy in the world, has record unemployment, record workforce engagement. There's, great GDP growth last quarter. That 4.7% last quarter, of course, is, by any measure, the U.S. economy is doing fantastic. And from a Canadian perspective, our largest trading partner is the U.S. So the Canadian economy picks up a tailwind as a result in terms of our exports to the United States, because the consumption in the U.S. is going up. So I feel I would say I lean on the side of being a positive with respect to the economic outlook for the next 12 to 24 months from the world economy perspective. Of course, no one has a crystal ball in this regard. And if history is any indicator, we are in one of the longest bull markets ever. Right. So there will be some form of reversion to the mean. I just don't see it short term.
Right. Now, when you say reversion to the mean, like what would that look like? Because a lot of people in the alternative media space say a recession, and then from that point, some of the same side effects or some of the same policies that will follow, such as what happened with the Great Recession. And so, give us a little bit of the Canadian economy. How's things up there? I know that there's some of the people say a couple different things. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Canadian. So I wrote a book about this, as you know, called "How We Can Win." And it's a book about how the Canadian economy and the Canadian way of life can not just survive long term, but thrive long term. And I really believe we're at a crossroads in that regard. The Canadian economy is structured around being an export economy. We are an export economy, and most of our exports, 75% of our exports, go to the United States. And so if you're thinking about things from a Canadian perspective, map that into a business conversation. No one would ever operate a business having one customer be 75% of the revenue.
Right.
But that's how the Canadian economy has evolved. And it started out as a British colony when the country was formed in 1867. So it's a young country, about 100 years younger than the United States, and it started as a British colony, and it's still part of the British Commonwealth. And so that whole colony mindset, I believe, has crippled the country from really being a global leader in business. I mean, we are just accustomed to being the supplier to the global leader. Initially, we were a supplier to the UK and the British Empire when they were the world power, and now we're a supplier to the United States, the current largest world power. So I think that mindset has to change, and I wrote a book about that because Canadians, we have all of the benefit of a great way of life here. We have strong democratic institutions. We have a great healthcare system that's world renowned. We have a great education system that's so highly regarded and ranks so well globally. We have a lot going for us. And above all, we're actually just generally a nice population. Yeah. We're just sort of nice people generally. I mean, there are jerks everywhere for sure. But, Canadians on the whole are just decent people. So I think we got a lot of potential, but we just don't have the mindset to go for the win. So I wrote a book, How We Can Win, and it's about how Canada can win. So I think the Canadian economy is doing decently right now, but we're not set up for long-term success, because we need to get better control of our own domestic products and services and the GDP coming from those, instead of relying so heavily on exports.
Right. So it sounds like, just Canadian mindset in general is in need of a paradigm shift or some type of shift in general. And so give us some solutions or some ideas, because I'm sure the same principles can apply to us here as well as to those listening around the world when it comes to just being more proactive and being more intentional with our productivity and our diversifying our business type of dealings with other countries and as well as people. So share with us some insights on that.
Yeah, I mean, sure. It actually ties into your earlier question about how, rethinking the dollar and what every individual's responsibility is in that regard. I mean, we all have to take ownership and control of our future. You can't rely on, you can rely on friends and family and colleagues to help you grow and help you learn. But at the end of the day, you are responsible yourself for your own success, and you need to be striving for the sky. You need to have in your mindset that the sky is the limit and that you can win at whatever you're doing. So, I mean, that's true in any developed country, and even in developing countries, emerging economies. There's this culture of entrepreneurialism that when you see it in motion, Mike, it's very exciting to see the progress in countries like India or China, where for many, many, many years they're either like stifled by corruption or stifled by communism or what have you, and now we're into really a global progression in capitalism and the ability for the individual to realize the life that they envision for themselves and make that dream a reality. So, but it starts with taking accountability and responsibility for your own financial picture, for your own career path, for your own destiny, and in terms of the context that I talk about in my book, it's really getting that mindset of going for the gold. And there's a really funny analogy that I always draw when I speak to groups that are just groups in Canada, is when we go out to play hockey. Hockey's like our national sport, as you know, and every young kid plays. It's like baseball and basketball and football combined, in terms of its importance in our culture. When we go out to play hockey, we go out to play to win. We expect to win the gold medal in the Olympics. We expect to win the Stanley Cup in the NHL. And when we don't win the gold medal, there's national disappointment. So it doesn't matter that we're playing against the United States, or a bigger country that's got more resources, it's got more people, more players. It doesn't matter. We expect to win. When we go out and play for business, we don't expect to win. So I'm trying to say to people, just think about playing business the way you think about playing hockey, because that's just, you got to go out for the win. And I don't understand it, why we're so confident, regardless of our size, our relative size, that we can win, we can beat the world in hockey, and we don't feel like we can beat the world in any business. I don't understand it. It's just entirely a mindset issue.
Yeah. Now, let's transition a little bit, because part of the whole having the mindset of thinking about winning, globally, it's a great opportunity for people to always take advantage of new opportunities. But yet, on the other side of that same coin is the fact that here, especially in the United States of America, a lot of people think about just consumption and consuming and just living for this moment. And this moment has a lot to do with borrowing and debt, and as you mentioned earlier, credit. So we're at a peak. A debt of all natures, whether it be automobiles, student loans, and all that. So I assume you guys have the same issues in Canada as we do here. So share with me your thoughts on the whole idea of how debt plays into this whole idea of not being dependent upon debt, but still utilize it for your own benefit.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? It's like anything else in life, whether you're talking about your diet, whether you're talking about your exercise routine, whether you're talking about your financial picture, it's about moderation. And the problem is not with debt itself. Debt as an instrument, to your point, it can be a very positive thing to help people realize a purchase of a home or a purchase of a car that really is something that's really value added for their lifestyle and their happiness as a result. But when it's not done in moderation and you overextend yourself and you borrow more than you can realistically support, that's when the stresses of financial burden comes in, and that's when you see people have all those stresses and all of the resulting negative outcomes, whether it's negative family or friendship outcomes, whether it's negative work outcomes. It really comes from people just borrowing more than they really can afford. So I always stress to when people talk to me about it, ask me about it, how do you think about investing your capital? I always go to, you got to think about the very long term. Life is long. and you want to be able to enjoy your whole life and not feel stressed later in life. So it doesn't matter whether you're 25 or 30 years old or 20 years old. You should be thinking about your long-term financial picture, and you have to take your own responsibility and accountability for it. You and you alone are accountable for your financial picture. You borrow too much money, and you're asking for a lot of problems.
Right, very true there. Now let's talk on a little bit of the Canadian and U.S. relations right now. And so just today, yesterday, and whatnot, the whole tariff situation.
You gotta politicize it, man, right? You gotta.
We got to, because we're bordering neighbors. Like I'm actually not too far from Ontario. I'm literally, I can hop in my car and be in Canada in 20 minutes or so. So our relationships are very strong. We've been trading partners for forever, but now all of a sudden there's a little rift there. So share with us your thoughts on this whole tariff aspect of what our president is doing, as well as how you guys are responding to that.
Yeah, look, I think that it highlights the issues that I raise in my book with respect to the Canadian economy having 75% of its exports go to one trading partner, being the United States. So now it becomes very important that trading relationship stay intact and ultimately grow for the growth of our economy. So I'm around talking when I speak to groups in Canada, when I speak to economic policy makers, when I speak to government officials, when I speak to constituents that are playing major CEOs that are playing a major role in our economy. I'm always talking about the need for diversification, and it's a principle in financial and wealth management that you've probably talked a lot about in your show in terms of rethinking the dollar. Diversification, meaning you can't have all your eggs in one basket. And so I don't, as opposed to what our current government is doing in terms of sort of being critical of the steps that the U.S. administration is taking with respect to trade, I prefer to more say, look, let's talk about a diversification strategy. There's no question there's real value in the trade relationship both ways. There's value to the United States in trading with Canada and vice versa. There's real value to us in trading with the U.S. So I believe there'll be some resolution to the current tariff, the rhetoric coming from the White House, and the rhetoric actually coming from the Canadian Prime Minister as well in response. Yeah. I think that the dust will settle, and I think people will find a reasonable balance because it's in both parties' interests to find a reasonable balance. But that doesn't solve the structural problem in the Canadian economy whereby, again, we're running a business with 75% of our revenue coming from one customer. And it doesn't matter that it's the United States and it's currently an ally and we're aligned and all those things are true and we've had a long, successful trading relationship, but you still have to plan, for the worst. And in this context, that means diversification. We need to grow our share of trade with other countries. We trade hugely with the United States, but then modestly with the European countries, with Asian countries, we do not trade that much. And it's not because the Canadian brand isn't known and well liked. I mean, our current prime minister has become a world famous celebrity.
Yeah.
So we've got the opportunity to do that. We've just got to capitalize on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough there. Now let's talk a little bit about entrepreneurship. So, as a serial entrepreneur, you're always looking for opportunities. And so assuming you have an eye for that. And so let's talk a little bit about some things that's happening around the world that could be considered valuable opportunities for a lot of people. So I'm going to throw out a couple words and just get your thoughts on it. And the very first one is just the whole idea of this whole cryptocurrency, blockchain space. And so share with us your thoughts on that as far as an entrepreneurial opportunity, as far as you as a venture capitalist, what you guys might be looking into and how it might be something worthwhile for people to consider as the technology grows.
Yeah, I mean, look, blockchain. So I'm a big fan of blockchain. I'm less of a fan of cryptocurrencies in their current form because I don't think there's sufficient regulation around them yet. But I do think long term, the concept of a cryptocurrency just makes a ton of sense. So when people ask me about crypto, I say, like, I would, if you do want to trade in it, you do want to own some, I would focus on the big names. I wouldn't focus on the smaller coins or the new coins that don't necessarily have, that big following yet, because there's a lot more risk in those. But blockchain is really important to differentiate from cryptocurrency. So blockchain, as we all know, is the underlying technology that cryptocurrencies run on. And the technology is very interesting from my perspective because I look at it as a new kind of database technology. So if you're thinking about founding a business as an entrepreneur, there's a new database technology out there. It's called blockchain. It's open source. So if you're going to build software, you can build software on blockchain, build your own blockchain and your own database architecture without relying on any of the big technology companies. So you don't need to buy a Microsoft database solution or Oracle or SAP or Google or Amazon or anything. You can build a database and then run a business on that database on an open source technology platform that you build your own software on. So I think there's just a whole wide range of opportunities. If you're an entrepreneur thinking about starting a business, I think blockchain is a really interesting place to look, because you can think about how it's going to impact every industry. The same way internet impacted every industry over the last 20 years, and now we just run our lives online, essentially. It wasn't like that 20 years ago when I started my career. I'm really dating myself here in my 40s. I started my career at the start of the internet.
Yeah.
Totally transformed our whole society, and the same thing's going to happen with blockchain. It's the next wave of technological disruption and evolution. And similarly, there's something happening that's as big at the same time, and that is the advent of artificial intelligence. So I talk about it a lot in the speaking I do, that the fourth industrial revolution is upon us, and it's being driven by AI. And so there are just a whole lot of opportunities to take a fresh look at legacy business models, whether it's in financial services, in transportation and logistics, in marketing and retail. Think about any industry. There's a whole new way to look at them, leveraging artificial intelligence technologies and blockchain technologies to create new business models, new revenue opportunities. And the same way the internet has transformed every industry on the planet, the same thing is going to happen now with AI and blockchain.
Wow, yeah, that's very true. So I'm thinking about the idea that all the older frames of doing things, all the brick and mortar stores, are how they're going to be transitioning and utilizing artificial intelligence and blockchain. So as an entrepreneur, that'd be a great way just to get your feet wet, get out here and try to figure out a way to get connected in that type of industry there. Now, for you personally, so as a serial entrepreneur, how do you weigh opportunities? How do you look at and see what could work? Or give us some insight into how a serial entrepreneur works as far as being able to look for and keep an eye on things. What are some things you look for?
Yeah, I mean, look, so I've been a founder, CEO my entire career, and my most recent startup is called Globalive Technology. I started it about a year ago, started raising capital for it about 6 months ago, and I'm very pleased to say that that company is going to be listed and trading on the Toronto Venture Exchange next week, actually under the ticker LIVE, L-I-V-E. And so we're really excited about that. That's a company that I started a year ago that's focused on building AI and blockchain technology stacks, building AI and blockchain software, and we're commercializing it through a host of joint ventures that we've formed. Some of them we've already announced, and these are joint ventures with partners that have an existing customer base that we can go and trial our AI and blockchain software with quickly. So we have a speed to market advantage in the joint ventures that we've formed, and we're super excited about it.
All right, fair enough. Now let's dive right into Globalive. And so give us some insight into that. So you started, a while back. Give us some insight into your team and whatnot, and some of the things that Globalive is doing, because you mentioned the AI blockchain situation.
Blockchain, yeah, so I started Globalive originally about 20 years ago, and one of the businesses I started 15 years ago was called Globalive Capital, which was a venture capital division of Globalive that I still own, and I have a team running that for me. We've made over 100 venture investments in early stage technology companies over the last 15 years. There's 45 companies currently in our portfolio, and they're all early stage to sort of mid-stage pre-IPO. A couple of them have reached now pre-IPO stage technology companies. And that's really given us great visibility into the early stage technology ecosystem. And of course, when we started 15 years ago, it was really the start of SaaS, or software as a service based business models. And these were kind of new software models that we're talking about selling software as a service. Now, of course, today, all of the big technology companies and all the even smaller, medium-sized technology companies that are selling software all sell it as a service. That is the way we as consumers and businesses buy software today. So we've seen that evolution. And then going back about 5 years ago, we started to invest in artificial intelligence startups. So it was very early days in terms of the latest wave of AI, and we got some great exposure there. And then more recently, we started investing in blockchain startups. And that's when I got excited about starting my next business. So I've gone in, again, as a founder and CEO of Globalive Technology. And as I say, we're building software that we're going to license across a number of industries. and we're building it using the latest AI and blockchain technology.
Now, so just as a little insight into that merger of blockchain and AI technology, can you share with us some of the nuts and bolts of how that'll work? Because I'm trying to, I recognize the opportunity, but yeah, I'm trying to figure out how you're going to link that together, because that could be some very unique stuff right there.
Yeah, so I mean, I think when you think about any kind of software, okay, so just taking a step back, when we think about how AI and blockchain work together, and how there will be this convergence of AI and blockchain. So think about in any software that's out there today, including now the software that's going to be built on AI and blockchain, software only works as well as the inputs you give it. So if you give a machine learning or artificial intelligence algorithm a bunch of data that is not well organized, that's not well structured, that's not high quality data, then you're going to get bad output from that AI. From that machine, those machine learning algorithms, you're going to get a bad output. It's this concept in software called garbage in, garbage out. You put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. So where blockchain plays a critical role in AI and fueling AI business models, AI-enabled business models, is ensuring high-quality, trusted, credible data that's coming on the immutable ledger that is the blockchain. So the blockchain database is open source, but another big benefit of it is it's secure. And the cryptography associated with blockchain has proven to be very secure so far, at least. And so when we talk about building AI solutions, we want the input to those AI solutions to be using data that we've memorialized on the immutable ledger that is the blockchain, to ensure that we're putting good quality data into our AIs.
Right, fair enough. Now, one of the big issues with the whole blockchain is the centralized and decentralized aspect of it. So share a little bit of insight as to how and what's the difference in regards to merging AI and blockchain together, whether it's centralized or decentralized.
Yeah, well, certainly. I mean, it ties in directly to my last comment with respect to, centralized versus decentralized and how AI plays a role in each. I think today what we have is software as a service-based business models that are running on a centralized database architecture, meaning everything goes in one place and all the transactions come in and out of one place. Of course, if you don't have high-quality data coming into that one place and you put the bad data or the weaker data into machine learning or artificial intelligence algorithms, you're going to get bad outcomes. You're going to get no real benefit to your business, no real cost savings, no real operating efficiencies, no real new revenue opportunities. But if you, by contrast, if you have a decentralized architecture that is the blockchain, where any data that's on there is been validated by the whole chain and all of its membership, that is valid information and can be taken as the correct information, now suddenly you can be a lot more confident when that AI does its analysis and produces you the output, because you've got a whole wide range of participants, so-called members of your blockchain, that are having to make that decision to validate that data is correct. I mean, that's how the blockchain works, is that it's decentralized decision-making, decentralized consensus on something. And once a consensus is realized and reached, that is what is memorialized on the blockchain as fact.
Interesting there. So as you hinted at earlier, you guys are about to go to become a publicly traded company. So share with us some short-term insight as well as some long-term, along with this merger of blockchain and AI in between all that. That's going to make a big difference in moving ahead. So share with us some insights as to what you envision in the days ahead as you guys take off on the ground with this project here.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about looking long-term on blockchain. It's focused on blockchain and blockchain infrastructure as opposed to crypto and cryptocurrencies in the short term. Cryptocurrencies are not a focus for us. Our focus is building software on the immutable ledger that is the blockchain, and we're going to commercialize that into the business market, and we're doing it by way of joint venture partnerships with great companies that already have a great customer base that we can market to. So our whole focus now is building software. I'm bringing back a lot of the developers that have worked for me over the years, and hiring a lot of new guys as well, to new developers as well, to really accelerate our growth. And we're super excited about it. I mean, we've got great progress so far. We're commercializing 4 of our joint ventures. We've announced that we're commercializing in Q3 this year, 2018. And so we're on our way, but there's lots more work to do for sure. And I always stress to anyone I talk to about it is that it's very early days for blockchain and AI. And so if you've got any aspiration to build a business, start a business, I think that those are 2 areas in technology that are very interesting to have a look at.
Right. Well, I do agree. I do agree. And so, Anthony Lacavera, I appreciate you for sitting down and sharing your thoughts on the whole entrepreneurship aspect, as well as the merger of blockchain and AI. So I definitely believe it's going to be a game changer in the days ahead. So once again, can you give the audience, the viewers that are coming across this interview here, a chance to find out more about Globalive? You said you guys are becoming a publicly traded company. Share with us the ticker again as well. I'll put some information below this video as well. But share with us your last thoughts and whatnot, and just some words of opportunities for people who might be watching this.
Great. Yeah, if you're thinking about making an investment and you're thinking about AI and blockchain and where those technologies can go, and you're looking for a long-term strategy, I would put our name forward, Globalive Technology, Toronto Venture Exchange, ticker LIVE, LIVE. And I put our name forward as someone you should consider for an investment, because we are thinking very long-term about this. There's not going to be any very quick hits here. This is really about a long-term build of software. I'm building the next great global software company, and that's not something that can happen overnight. But if you're interested in learning about AI and blockchain and like to get more insights, you can go to globalivetech.com. You can look me up on LinkedIn. It's Anthony Lacavera. Twitter at Anthony Lacavera, and I'm always on there talking about the latest trends that I see in AI and blockchain, and anytime there's an interesting tidbit that I come across, I always share it. So that's one way to get up to speed.
Sounds good. Well, Anthony, thank you for sitting down with us. Definitely, as well as those that are interested, there'll be a link below. You can find out more information about Globalive there directly. And other than that, thank you for sitting down with me. Definitely look forward to finding out more of this merger of blockchain and AI, because I do believe it's going to be a game changer and a lot of opportunity for those that are looking to diversify, as we talked about earlier. So thank you once again for sitting down with us at Rethinking the Dollar, and look forward to continue to follow your progress. So Globalive, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate it.